Let me ask you something before we begin, and be honest with yourself when you answer. If a single message from her could undo weeks of your progress in one moment, then who is actually in control of your recovery right now? You or her incoming text? Sit with that, because it's the real point of this whole video. Because there are signs sometimes that someone is about to reach out. Small shifts in behavior that often come right before an ex breaks the silence. And I'm going to show you those signs so you can recognize them. But here's what almost every video on this topic gets wrong, and what the Stoic mind understands. The goal was never to detect her reach out so you can get excited and wait for it. The goal is to prepare yourself so completely that whether she reaches out or not, you remain grounded, clear, and in command of yourself. Because a man who's caught off guard by her message, swept up in a flood of hope, will make decisions he regrets, while a man who has prepared himself in advance meets that moment from his center, unshaken. So today I'll give you the signs she's about to reach out, but far more importantly, I'll show you the one thing to do first, before any message ever arrives, that determines whether you handle it with the strength of a grounded man or the desperation of a man still waiting to be rescued. But before we begin, if you felt that anticipation of her reaching out, do this one thing for yourself right now. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because that's how you become a Stoic soldier, a man who shows up for his own strength every single day, and never misses the lesson when he needs it most. And down in the comments, type 3 words and mean them. Ready, not waiting. Say it before you've even finished watching, because the words you claim today become the strength you stand on tomorrow. Now, let's begin. Number 1. The small signals first. The first sign that someone might be about to reach out is what I'll call the small signals, the low stakes, testing the water gestures that often come before a bigger, more direct reach out. People rarely go from complete silence straight to a heartfelt message. More often they warm up to it gradually, sending small signals first to test whether the door is open. This looks like a sudden like on one of your posts after a long silence, a view on your story when she hadn't been engaging, a brief, low-effort reaction to something you shared. These are feelers, small, deniable gestures that let her gauge your responsiveness and her own readiness without committing to anything real yet. And when you notice these small signals appearing after a stretch of silence, it can sometimes indicate that she's testing the ground, working up to something more direct, dipping a toe in before deciding whether to reach out fully. But here's the honest caveat, and I'll give you one after every sign, because false anticipation serves you no better than false hope. Small signals don't necessarily mean a bigger reach-out is coming. A like might be exactly what it looks like, a passing moment of idle scrolling with no plan behind it. A story view might mean nothing at all, since watching a story takes half a second and requires no intention. These small gestures might be the warm-up to something more, or they might be completely isolated, meaningless, and lead nowhere. You genuinely can't tell the difference from the gesture alone. The Stoics valued seeing things clearly and refusing to construct elaborate predictions from thin evidence. So take this sign for what it is, a possible early signal, worth noting but not worth building anticipation around, because the small gestures often mean nothing at all. And notice already, even the first sign comes with an enormous asterisk. That asterisk is going to matter more than the signs themselves. Number 2. She's watching more closely. The second sign is that she starts watching your life more closely in the lead-up. Before someone reaches out, they often re-engage with your world first, checking your profile, watching your content more consistently, seeming to keep closer tabs on what you're doing. It's as if before making contact, they want to know where you stand, whether you seem to be doing well, whether you might be seeing someone, whether the timing feels right, whether you'd be receptive. This increased attention to your life can sometimes precede a reach-out, because she's gathering information and building up to it, orienting herself toward you again before she actually makes the move. If you notice a marked increase in her attention to your world after a period of distance, it can occasionally be a lead-up to her breaking the silence. But the honest caveat, as always, increased watching can precede a reach-out, or it can mean something else entirely, or nothing at all. It might be simple curiosity that leads nowhere. It might be an idle habit rather than a build-up to anything. It might be that she's checking in out of ordinary human interest without any intention of making contact. And here's the deeper issue. To even notice that she's watching more closely, you'd have to be watching her closely yourself, monitoring her engagement, tracking her attention, which means the very act of detecting this sign requires you to be fixated on her in exactly the way that keeps you stuck. The Stoics understood that fixating on the behavior of others, trying to read and predict them, keeps us tethered to things outside our control. So take this sign for what it's worth, but notice the trap embedded in it. Detecting whether she's watching requires you to be watching, and that watching is itself part of what keeps you from moving on. Sometimes the pursuit of the sign is more harmful than the sign is useful. Number 3. A trigger moment arrives. The third sign isn't about her behavior directly, it's about timing. People are far more likely to reach out at certain moments, the trigger moments that stir up emotion and lower the resistance to making contact. These include holidays, birthdays, anniversaries of significant dates, the anniversary of when you got together, or times of year that carry shared meaning. They also include moments of loneliness or transition in her life. The end of another relationship, a hard stretch, a period of change, a time when the comfort of the familiar becomes appealing. During these trigger moments, the emotional pull to reach out intensifies, nostalgia rises, and the barrier to breaking the silence drops. So if one of these moments is approaching, a meaningful date, a holiday, a season that held significance for the two of you, the likelihood of a reach-out can genuinely increase simply because these moments prompt people to reconnect. But the honest caveat, and an important reframe, a trigger moment increasing the odds of a reach-out doesn't mean the reach-out means anything lasting. A message sent in the emotional pull of a holiday or a lonely night is often exactly that. A momentary impulse driven by the occasion, not a considered desire to genuinely reconnect. These trigger moment reach-outs frequently fade as quickly as they came because they were prompted by the emotion of the moment rather than by any real, sustained intention. So, even when a trigger moment produces a reach-out, you should hold it loosely, understanding that it may be nostalgia talking rather than a genuine shift. The Stoics understood that emotions stirred by circumstances are fleeting and unreliable guides. So take this sign for what it is. An awareness that certain moments raise the odds of contact, useful mainly so that you're not caught off guard, but with the clear understanding that a reach-out prompted by a trigger moment is often the least meaningful kind. The date on the calendar tells you when she might reach out. It tells you nothing about whether it matters. Number 4. Indirect before direct. The fourth sign is that she tests the ground indirectly before reaching out directly. Before sending you a direct message, someone building up to contact will sometimes make indirect approaches first, mentioning you to mutual friends, showing up where you'll both be, engaging with you in group settings, or finding low-stakes ways to re-establish a connection before risking a direct, one-on-one reach-out. These indirect approaches let her gauge the situation and re-establish some contact without the vulnerability of reaching out directly. If you notice her suddenly appearing in shared spaces, bringing you up to mutual friends, or engaging with you in group contexts after a period of absence, it can sometimes be a lead-up to a more direct reach-out. She's testing whether the connection is still there before committing to a direct message. But the honest caveat, and by now you can probably predict its shape. Indirect approaches can precede a direct reach-out, or they can be entirely ordinary and lead nowhere. Mutual friends and shared spaces mean you'll naturally cross paths sometimes without any plan behind it. She might bring you up to a friend casually, with no intention of contacting you. She might engage in a group setting simply because you're both there. The indirect contact might be building towards something, or it might be nothing more than the normal overlap of two lives that were once connected. The Stoics understood that we tend to read intention and meaning into circumstances that are often just circumstance. So take this sign for what it's worth, a possible lead-up, but often just the ordinary friction of shared social space. And notice, now that we've gone through 4 signs, the pattern that's emerged. Every sign is real, and every sign is deeply ambiguous, unable to reliably predict anything. Hold on to that, because it's about to become the whole point, and it's what makes the "do this first" so much more important than the signs themselves. Number 5. The honest truth about these signs. So, there are the signs, and now the honest truth about all of them, because this is where it actually matters. Every one of these signs is genuinely ambiguous, and none of them can reliably predict that she's about to reach out. Each could indicate a coming reach out, or could mean nothing at all, could be ordinary behavior, could be idle habit, or passing curiosity, or simple coincidence. You cannot know from these signs whether she'll actually reach out, because you don't have access to her intentions, and human behavior is far too unpredictable to forecast from a few ambiguous gestures. So the first honest truth is, these signs might precede a reach out, but they can't reliably predict one, and treating them as certainties will only set you up for the disappointment of anticipation that leads nowhere. And here's the second, more important honest truth. Even if she does reach out, it doesn't necessarily mean what you hope it means. A reach out could be a genuine desire to reconnect, or it could be loneliness, boredom, nostalgia, a trigger moment impulse, a desire for validation, or simply the wish to know you're still available. The reach out itself, if it comes, reveals very little about her real intentions or about whether reconnecting would be good for you. So detecting the signs and anticipating the reach out gives you far less than you imagine. You can't reliably predict it, and even if it comes, it doesn't tell you what you want to know. The Stoics understood that we cannot know or control the actions of others, and that building our hopes on predicting them is building on sand. So here's the honest truth about these signs. They can't reliably tell you she's about to reach out, and even if she does, it won't mean what you hope. Which raises the real question. If the signs can't predict it, and the reach out itself wouldn't tell you much, then what should you actually be doing? And the answer is the whole point of this video, preparing yourself. Number 6. Do this first. Ground yourself before it happens. So here's the heart of the title, the "do this first," and it reframes the entire topic. The most important thing to do isn't to detect the signs and wait for her reach out. It's to ground yourself in advance so completely that whether she reaches out or not, you remain centered, clear, and in command of yourself. This is the real preparation, and it changes everything. Because here's what happens to the unprepared man. Her message arrives, and he's caught off guard, flooded with hope and emotion, and in that destabilized state, he responds instantly and desperately, undoing his progress and making decisions he'll regret. But the prepared man is different. He's done the work to be grounded before anything happens, so when the message comes, if it comes, it doesn't sweep him away, because he's already centered, already stable, already in command of himself. The preparation is what determines whether you handle the moment with strength or with desperation. And this grounding is not about her at all. It's about you, and it's the same work of genuine healing and self-mastery we return to again and again. You ground yourself by continuing your own healing, by redirecting your focus to your own life, by building your own stability and peace, by mastering your reactions, by rooting your worth and your well-being within yourself rather than in her. You become so genuinely grounded in your own life that her potential reach-out loses its power to destabilize you, because your peace no longer depends on her in any way. The Stoics understood that the way to handle any external event well is to prepare yourself in advance, to build an inner stability so solid that no external event can shake it. So this is what you do first. Before any sign, before any message, you ground yourself. You do the ongoing work of healing and self-mastery until you're so centered that whatever she does or doesn't do, you remain unshaken. And a man who has grounded himself this way has already won, because he's no longer at the mercy of whether a message arrives. He's stable regardless, prepared for anything, in command of himself no matter what. Number 7. Decide in advance who you are. Part of grounding yourself is deciding in advance who you are and how you'll respond, because the worst time to figure out your response is in the emotional flood of the moment itself. Here's the principle. Decisions made in the grip of intense emotion are almost always worse than decisions made in advance, in a calm and clear state. So rather than waiting to see how you'll react when her message arrives, you decide beforehand, from your grounded center, who you want to be in that moment and how you want to handle it. You think through, calmly and in advance, what reconnecting would actually mean, whether it would be good for you, and how you'd want to respond if she reached out, not as a rigid script, but as a settled sense of your own values and your own best interests, established while your judgment is clear rather than clouded by the emotion of the moment. And this advanced decision is powerful because it means that when the moment comes, you're not making a high-stakes choice in a destabilized state. You're simply acting on a decision you already made with a clear mind. You've already thought through whether reconnecting serves you. You've already decided that you'll respond, if at all, from your center rather than from desperation. You've already established who you want to be, so when the message arrives, the emotional flood can't hijack your judgment, because your judgment was already settled in a calm state. This is exactly what the Stoics practiced, deciding in advance how they would meet the challenges they knew might come, so that they'd be prepared to respond with wisdom, rather than being swept away by the emotion of the moment. So decide in advance who you are and how you'll respond. Think it through calmly, from your grounded center, before anything happens. And then, if the moment comes, you'll meet it as a man who already knows who he is and what he wants, not one scrambling to figure it out in the grip of hope. That advanced clarity is one of the most powerful forms of preparation there is. Number 8. Know what's actually good for you. Here's a crucial part of your advanced preparation, one that most men skip entirely. Honestly determining, before anything happens, whether reconnecting would even be good for you. Notice how the whole framing of signs she's about to reach out quietly assumes that her reaching out is a good thing, something to hope for and welcome. But that assumption deserves examination, and the calm, clear moment before any message arrives is exactly when to examine it. So ask yourself honestly now, while you're grounded, was that relationship actually good for me? Were the problems that ended it things I could genuinely live with if they returned? Was I happy or was I anxious and diminished? Would reconnecting genuinely improve my life, or would it likely repeat the same painful cycle? These are the questions to answer in advance clearly, so that if she does reach out, you already know whether it's something you'd even want. And this matters enormously, because the emotional pull of a reach-out can make reconnection feel desirable, regardless of whether it's actually good for you. In the flood of hope when her message arrives, your judgment about whether this is wise gets overwhelmed by the sheer relief and excitement of her reaching out. But if you've already determined in a clear state whether reconnecting serves you, then you're protected from being swept into something harmful by the emotion of the moment. You'll already know whether her reach-out is an opportunity or a temptation to avoid. The Stoics taught that we must evaluate things by whether they're genuinely good for us, not by whether we desire them in the moment, because desire is a poor guide that often leads us back into our own suffering. So do this evaluation in advance. Honestly assess whether reconnecting would actually be good for your life, while you're calm and clear enough to see it truthfully. Because you are not obligated to welcome a reach-out just because it comes, and the man who has already decided what's good for him won't be swept into something harmful by the excitement of being reached out to. Number 9. The trap, making her reach out the prize. Now I have to give you the most important warning in this entire video, because there's a way to take everything I've said and corrupt it into the very thing that keeps you stuck. Here's the trap, making her reach out the prize, treating her reaching out as the goal, the thing you're hoping for, waiting for, anticipating, scanning for the signs with excitement, preparing your response like you're preparing for a victory. Because if her reach out is the prize, then you're still fixated on her, still waiting on her, still making her the center of your recovery, still handing her the power to determine your emotional state. And that's the opposite of the grounded independence we've been building. The preparation I've described is not about eagerly awaiting her message. It's about being so grounded that whether it comes or not is genuinely irrelevant to your peace. The moment you turn it into anticipating a prize, you've lost the whole point. So here's the line you must hold. You ground yourself and prepare not because you're hoping she'll reach out, but so that you're unshaken whether she does or doesn't. And ideally, you reach a place where you genuinely don't care either way. The test is your honest state. If you're excitedly watching for the signs, refreshing your phone, hoping the reach out comes, then you're not grounded, you're waiting, and the waiting keeps you chained. But if you've done the work to the point where her reaching out would be met with calm equanimity, and her never reaching out would be equally fine, then you've achieved the real thing. The goal was never to detect and welcome her reach out. It was to become so grounded that it stopped mattering. The Stoics understood that true peace comes from needing nothing from outside ourselves, from being complete regardless of what others do. So don't make her reach out the prize. Don't anticipate it. Don't wait for it. Don't build your hopes around it. Ground yourself so completely that whether she reaches out becomes irrelevant to your peace, because that indifference, that genuine not needing it, is the real preparation and the real freedom. Number 10. The final word. So let's bring it all the way home. There are signs she might be about to reach out, the small signals, the closer watching, the trigger moments, the indirect approaches. I gave them to you honestly. But by now you understand the deeper truth, that these signs are ambiguous and can't reliably predict anything, that even if she reaches out, it won't mean what you hope, and that detecting the signs was never the point. The point was the do this first. Grounding yourself so completely in advance that whether she reaches out or not, you remain centered and in command of yourself. You learn to decide who you are and how you'll respond before the emotional moment arrives, to honestly determine whether reconnecting would even be good for you, and to avoid the trap of making her reach out the prize you're anxiously waiting for. That's the whole of it. And here's the deepest truth to carry with you. The goal was never to predict her message and wait for it with hope. It was to become so grounded that her message, if it ever comes, meets a man who is already whole, already stable, already at peace with or without it. So stop watching for the signs. Ground yourself instead. Prepare your center, decide who you are, and become so complete that whether she reaches out stops mattering to you at all. And if this video gave you even a fraction of the strength or clarity you came here looking for, then before you go, do these last few things for yourself. Like this video so it can reach the next man anxiously watching for signs of a message when he should be grounding himself instead. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you stand with us as a Stoic soldier, a man who shows up for his own strength every single day and never misses the lesson when he needs it most. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here, and thank you for watching all the way to the end. So the next time you catch yourself watching for signs that she's about to reach out, remember what actually matters. Not detecting her message, but preparing yourself. Ground your center, decide who you are, know what's good for you, and become so complete that whether she reaches out is irrelevant to your peace. Because a man who is grounded within himself doesn't need to predict anyone's message or wait for anyone's return. He's already whole, already at peace, and already prepared for anything, precisely because his stability was never in anyone's hands but his own. Stay grounded, stay unshakable, and I'll see you in the next one.